Just at the shop by Nyan Zanketsu, Chapter 2. Just a nobody. One does not barter with death, nor does one bribe the devil. You run from them, you hide from them. Pray they don't notice you. Oh yes, you pray. Pray. Just a nobody. Naruto's broom attacked the floor ruthlessly. There were no survivors. The whiskered warrior hummed softly while he worked, sweeping bits of broken glass and shattered dust out into the street. It was slow going, tedious even. Roman's men had made quite a mess, to say nothing of the hole he blasted in the ceiling. Really, he could have used his shadow clones to expedite the process tenfold by now, but it was the little things in life, things like this, that kept him going. It also gave him the time to think, to consider just how he was going to make Toshbik pay for his transgressions. Or maybe you're just stalling. Kurama yawned from his customary perch on the counter. We both know what comes next, don't we? Without missing a beat, the blonde swept up a bit of desiccated dust and winged it at the fox's head. If you can talk, you can help, he growled. I gave you that body for a reason. Fine. Twist my tail, why don't you? Cold blue eyes met his. You let him go. His partner stretched once and uttered a jaw-popping yawn as he hopped down to the floor. He's probably delivered his message by now. With but a flick of his tail, he reined a fallen shelf and swept the ruined merchandise aside. Now it's time to hunt him down like the dog he is. Him, his associates, and everyone who knows his name. No one will respect us if we let something like this slide. True enough, when you were immortal, you learned to appreciate the simple pleasures in life. When you ceased to age in the conventional sense of the word, you found meaning in the smaller things. The simple minutiae of life, when time could not slow you, when death was unable to hold you. You had to find things to live for, if only to stay sane. Surprises, for instance. No matter how long you lived, you could never know all there was to know, never see all there was to see. For each day there was always something new to find. It added that little bit of piece to life, just the sort that kept an ancient shinobi going. Even the odd spot of bad luck could produce a surprise, a shock to break one out of a tedious cycle. It could also serve as a warning, not to him of course, but others. There was always a bigger fish out there, always a monster hiding under the bed. Today, someone had poked that monster. Roman's actions had been, less a surprise and more of a shock, a wake-up call really. He'd been quite too long, spent lifetimes getting this place up and running, not for the cash, not for the reputation, but the simple joy of having something to call his own. People might wither and die, but a business, a legacy, those are eternal, and one punk comes along, ruined it all. The handle of Naruto's broom cracked under his grip. Not just him, but Junior's boys. He recognized the Red Axe gang when he saw them. They destroyed no small amount of his dust. He'd be paying the club a visit too. Kurama was right. Maybe it was time to clean house, time to remind the world why you didn't mess with a man's life. A phone rang in the back, cutting the dark spiral of his thoughts short. Blue eyes shifted to regard it. Glass and masonry crunched underfoot as he stalked towards it. Still it rang, once, twice, thrice. It was an old piece of work, not a scroll, but a landline, corded and all, with a dial to spin numbers. He wasn't sure why he'd kept the blasted thing around. Nostalgia, memories of a simpler time. Who could say? Kurama hopped onto his shoulder. You gonna get that? Naruto didn't speak. He reached down and after a moment's hesitation, picked it up. Hello, old friend. A familiar voice came through immediately. I heard about your shop. You have my condolences. You're in a great deal of trouble, Miss Rose. Ruby flailed her arms in a vain attempt to ward the words away. To no avail, they hit her like a physical blow, sending all her hopes and dreams crashing to the ground. Was this the end? Was she going to jail? No, she rallied her thoughts. This wasn't a police station. Miss Goodwitch had brought her here, wherever here was, but it certainly wasn't downtown. But why? She whimpered a little. I was fighting bad guys. I did good. You did. The man before her tended his fingers with a sigh. But it does not excuse your crimes. You inflicted significant property damage on that shop. Right, calm down. Remember, this wasn't the police station. This was probably Headmaster Osman's office. Luckily, one of many he kept around Vale. He couldn't arrest her. Could he? Oh gods, what if he could? She didn't want to go to jail. She was too young, too pure. They'd eat her alive. Naruto said I wasn't in trouble. Her voice hitched a little. He did. Be that as it may, Ospen winced, almost as if he were afraid of something. We cannot simply let you off lightly on this. Am I? Her voice warbled and she wobbled once to recover. Am I going to jail? That depends. The ancient hunter blinked. Do you wish to? She made a keening noise through her teeth. No. That was a joke. Here at last his countenance softened. You'll simply be repaying your debt to Mr. Uzumaki. He laughed a little as she collapsed like a wet noodle in her chair. You'll work in his establishment on the weekends until such a time as your debt is repaid. Wait, why weekends? Because, he continued with a smile, I suspect you will be quite busy with your new coursework in the meantime. New what? Now? Ruby's heart skipped a beat. Then another still. Wait. Surely he wasn't suggesting, was he? Wah! She managed. Ospen leaned forward and offered her his hand. I do hope you'll be less rambunctious in Beacon, Miss Rose. Was he moving her ahead 2 years? A full 2 years? Ruby's heart howled back to life, turning her pale face a bright shade red. Full steam ahead. All systems are go. Forward. She lunged across the desk and clasped his hands, pumping it up and down like a mad woman. Thank you. I'll be the best huntress ever. Do not thank me, dear girl. He withdrew, rubbing his arm with a wince. Thank Naruto. He called in a personal favor, and that chagrined smile returned, more rueful than ever before. Now then, I believe your mother wishes to speak with you. All of Ruby's newfound joy turned to ashes in her mouth. Meep. Any chance so you can, pretend I'm not here? He sighed. I'm afraid that fox is out of the bag. Wait, that's not how you say. The door slammed open behind her, cutting the girl short. Ruby Rose, a familiar voice cried. You are in so much trouble, young lady. Roman was late. On a certain level, Cinder wasn't surprised. One could hardly trust a common criminal to keep their word in this day and age. No honor among thieves and all that. Roman had always been surly, and it wasn't as though he had chosen to cooperate with them. Him and Neo had been forced into this arrangement, like so many others before them. Still, was it so wrong to expect a little professionalism in this day and age? Their place of meeting wasn't much better. Golden eyes flicked about, regarding her surroundings with nothing short of disdain. What had Roman called this place? The club? How droll. Even a private room such as this was too dingy for her taste. Too much red by half. To say nothing of the wine, it would suit her needs for now. Honestly, it galled her. She couldn't wait to be rid of this filthy city. If it wasn't the bad wine, it was the people. At least Emerald and Mercury had the good grace to be silent. Perhaps they'd sensed her mood, perhaps not. She didn't much care at the moment. When Roman finally stumbled in, she considered killing him out of principle, if nothing less. The man looked awful. His white coat was tattered and stained, his hat horribly dented. And good gods, he reeked. The smell alone was nearly enough to make her eyes water. Only her finer instincts prevented her from pinching her nose outright. Had he gone swimming in a dumpster? Where have you been? Such a nice boss, I have. Torchwick collapsed on the couch opposite her, all but sprawling himself out without a care in the world. How are you, Roman? How was your day, Roman? Why do you look like shit, Roman? Cinder exhaled slowly. Must not kill. This was why she loathed working with common criminals, always so crass, always thinking of themselves and nothing else, always so small in their worldview, never once thinking of the bigger picture, nor the long term. For all his flair and panache, Roman was no different. But he was speaking to her, and she must attend. Her gaze flitted over him, noting the curious lack of the case she'd given him. Where's the dust? Don't have it. A slender brow rose. Excuse me. And some guy threw me out. He sat up with a growl and began massaging his dented hat. Beat my ass, then kicked me to the curb like I was nothing. You cannot be serious. Cinder's mouth twisted in a grimace, fussed with a snarl. Worthless fool. You lost to a common shopkeeper. Of course not. Roman's voice cracked like a whip eye, surprising her with its intensity. What do you take me for? Many things, a fool, a leech, hired help, but she'd assumed he was at least reasonably competent. Now it seemed that assumption was all for naught. Disgraceful. He'd gone with a score of junior's men, meaning he was hardly alone at the time, and yet here he was, broken and battered. She leaned forward in her chair. Was it a huntsman? He winced. Well, no, but so he had lost to a civilian then? Deplorable. A strange nagging sensation tugged at the back of her thoughts. Surely not. What were the chances? She folded one leg over the other as she poured herself another glass of wine. Her luck wasn't that bad. It couldn't be. Yet that thorn of doubt continued to tug at her nonetheless. It just wouldn't let her be. Curious. Do you recall the name of this shop? It was some dinky little place. Romaine shrugged. Nothing special. Sparks and explosions, I think. Weird name. No. Joke's on him, though. He chortled, unaware of her dread. Junior's voice really trashed the place. No. Where I see it, he'll be out of business for weeks. No. Cinder's blood was no longer cold in her veins. It was ice, frozen completely. She could barely breathe. This was a bad dream. It had to be. She pinched her left arm only to wince as pain flared through her limbs. Not a dream then. This was terribly, horribly real. Fury heated her heart, breaking her free from her frigid stupor. You must be tired, Roman, she whispered at last. Come here, have a drink. He eyed her warily, but yielded beneath her state. Don't mind if I do. Like a good little worm, Roman did as he was bade. She poured, filling his cup to the brim. Roman accepted the glass that was offered and drank. His glass clinked against hers. Cinder waited, watched as he downed it in a single gulp. Her body coiled like a viper. She counted to 3, 2, 1. Then she surged out of her chair and buried a fist in his gut. Torchwick doubled over with a rasping gasp and vomited what he'd just imbibed. Red liquid spattered the floor. Cinder carelessly flung a nearby cloth at him. Clean that up. You wasted good wine. Absolute ingrate. He did so, wasted and gasping for air. A minute passed, then another still. Behind him, Emerald gulped. Cinder, should we stay? She hissed. What? Roman gasped as he looked up at her. What did I do? It's not what you did that angers me so, Roman. Cinder stood, poured herself another flute of wine. It's who you did it to. That fucking nobody. Roman retched where he lay on the floor. What about him? It was just a dust shop. What does it matter? Fool, imbecile, idiot. She wanted to shriek at him for what he'd done. That fucking nobody, as you eloquently put it, is Naruto Uzumaki. Instead, her golden eyes flashed over the rim of her glass as she drank. He once was an associate of ours. Those eerie burning orbs closed for a moment, then opened again. Do you know what we called him? Roman gulped. I'm gonna find out, aren't I? Boogeyman. She muttered a phrase in a language he didn't understand. His visible eyes squinted at her. What was that? In Japanese. She took another drink. He taught me a bit. The closest translation would be the boogeyman. What? He climbed to his feet with a groan. You called him a demon? Well, Naruto wasn't exactly the boogeyman. She sat and crossed one leg over the other. He was the man you sent to kill the boogeyman. His face patted. Paled. Naruto is a man of focus. Thrice as quickly she stood again, unable to stand still. Commitment, sheer will. Her forehead pressed against his. Something you know very little about. I once saw him kill 3 men in a bar with a pencil. He looked away and she snarled at him. A bloody pencil, Roman. Then suddenly one day he decided to leave. Her visible eye flashed with golden flames. He never said why. He wanted out. We made a deal, a truce. Her lips peeled back with a snarl. And then, Roman, a few days before the anniversary of said truce, you raid his shop, destroy his stock, and smash his windows in. To be fair, he hedged. That last bit was the kid. I do not care. Cinder rounded on him with a hiss, temper still unspent. Her glasses struck the wall and shattered, spraying the blood wine everywhere. Roman recalled, I can fix this. Oh, she cocked a slender brow. How? Torchwick actually stood a little straighter, the fool, by finishing what I started. Did he hear what I said? Cinder cast a despairing glance at Emerald, then whirled and drew him into an embrace. Naruto will come for you, and you will do nothing, because you can do nothing. But he let me go, only to send a message to me. She pulled away and touched his cheek. There is nothing he loves more than the thrill of the hunt. Her palm caressed his face. I should know. He taught me a great deal, after all. I suspect he'll pay Junior and his men a visit as well. But you, without neither word or warning, her hand twisted, striking him. Roman's head snapped to the side. You have endangered years of planning. Flame leaped to her hands, promising pain if he raised so much as a finger against her. All my schemes will be not because of you. She brandished the globe of fire at him with intent. Count yourself grateful I don't kill you here and now. Get out of my sight. Roman got. The door slammed behind him. Cinder rolled and began to pace immediately thereafter. She had to fix this. She must fix this. He could ruin everything. Would ruin everything. She couldn't hope to stop him. Few could. Osmond himself turned a blind eye to his activities, catered to him, appeased him for fear of provoking his wrath. Nor would Salem dare involve herself in this, which meant she reached for her coat and donned it quickly. I'm going out. Ma'am. Emerald flinched but a little. I don't understand. Do you want us to come with you? No. Cinder paused, realizing how shrill she just sounded. No, she repeated, forcing her voice to regain its calm tenor. That won't be necessary. She had to speak with him. Indeed, she still had his old number. Of course she did, and she'd committed it to memory. Something told her a phone call would be insensitive if she didn't visit afterwards. Fine, in person then. It presented a great danger to her, of course, to say nothing of her pride, but there could be no risk without reward. Call first, then a visit, right? So be it. Face to face it was, then. Nothing else could suffice. Damn Roman to hell. Previews. The door squeaked open like a fearful field mouse. Naruto looked up. Hello, Cinder. Right. She could do this. Summer's head poked around the corner. Naruto granted her a small smile. Hello, sweetie. His old friend pouted. I thought I told you to stop calling me that. You did. I chose not to listen. There's a difference. So, what brings you to my shop? Nothing much. She touched the shelf, then winced when it crashed to the floor. Oh, I was just in the area. I don't blame Ruby. He cut into her rambling. Her shoulders slumped. Oh, thank God. She's mine, isn't she? How? Ty's been dead for a while, Summer. I know. You're misunderstood. This isn't war. His hand rose. This is pest control. Junior raised his hand. I didn't know it was you. And now you do. Are you sorry? Yes, I swear. I didn't know. Tough. I've come to work. Naruto quirked a brow. Well, there's not much to do right now. Still waiting on the insurance money. He looked past her. Oh, is that your team? His gaze fixated on Weiss in particular. Ah, a Schnee. Why am I not surprised? Everywhere I go, there's always a Schnee. Excuse me. You're excused. Now buy something or get. I've heard about this place. Her gaze flitted about. How much would it take to buy you out? No! End of Chapter 2. Just a Dust Shop by Nyan Zangetsu. Chapter 3. Pay your respects. I tried it, being normal. Wasn't terribly good at it. You've disrespected me. You know what that means? So, which will it be? Right or left? Pay your respects. In the shadows of Junior's club, a knife found a man's throat. The bouncer in question went still. No, it would be better to say that he froze. He ceased to move, blink, or even breathe. Every fiber of his being locked up as those words whispered in his ear. His mind became intimately aware of his surroundings, of the darkness of the man standing within it, of that cold, cruel steel hooked against his jugular. His very soul gibbered for mercy, pleading that if he was just quiet enough, that if he just didn't move, then maybe he'd be left well enough alone. Hello, Francis. You look good. No such luck. The guard dared a thread of breath and turned his head just so, hoping to hell he was wrong. He was not. Baleful blue eyes gazed back at him. Instead, within a whiskered face framed by a messy blonde hair, he discarded his shopkeeper's attire in favor of a crisp navy suit with a streak red tie, darker than blood itself. On anyone else, it would have been gauche. On him, it was a reminder. This man didn't need a knife to kill him. That he had brought one at all said more than most. He was being kind. This was a man who had shown him mercy once in the past, a man who allowed him to reform and change his ways. He wondered if he would be shown such mercy a second time. Mr. Uzumaki, he swallowed once as his voice broke. Now, don't be formal. But look at you, you've moved up in the world. A smile touched the blonde's face. Lost a bit of weight, have we? Francis swallowed again, unable to mask his accent for fear of what might happen if he did. 50 pounds. 50 men inside. He prayed his associate understood the warning. Naruto inclined his head just so. That's good. Good. A hand patted his back, pulling the pistol from his belt. You won't mind if I take this, will you? He didn't have much of a choice, did he? You couldn't fight this man. You could try, but you would die. The gangs had tried once, never again, and he didn't want to die. He had a family, grandchildren in Atlas. He wanted to see them again. Oh gods, he didn't want to die here. Are you here on business tonight? I'm afraid so, Francis. Blue eyes flashed in the dark and gleaming red in the gloom. Why don't you take the night off? The knife slowly fell away from his throat, jagged metal kissing skin, but not breaking it. Francis, report. Junior's voice hissed through his earpiece. Any sign of him? Francis tugged out the device earpiece with trembling fingers. Only then did he turn to face him. Thank you, sir. All he found was empty air. No one was there. Knock, 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 knock. It was the sound of doom, a steady thud, thud, thud that echoed against the door. 3 knocks, like drums out for blood. Junior knew it in his soul. He'd known it the moment his men started screaming behind that door, knowing that there was nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere he could possibly hope to hide where this creature couldn't find him. So he didn't try at all, even as the door buckled and shook, even as the last of his gang died. Bloody stood at the bar, bottle in hand, and drank. Liquid courage fortified him, not enough to make him drunk, but it was all he had. All this for a single mistake. It was just a dust shop. How was he to know that this lived in Vale? He'd never been told, or if he had, he'd forgotten. He wasn't sure which. He couldn't remember anymore. He wasn't sure he wanted to. Not after the sounds he'd heard. The door crashed open, and his killer stalked over the threshold at a brisk pace, eyes narrow and intent. There wasn't so much as a drop of blood on him, not a one, a mountain of bodies behind him, and not a drop of blood anywhere other than his weapons of choice. Blue eyes met his. You know, I never did like guns. His knife flicked out once, carving a scarlet smile in the last man's throat. A fool went down with a bloody gurgle. So uncivilized, wouldn't you agree? Melanie tried to bar his path, bless her simple soul, and was summarily swatted her and he was summarily swatted her through a wall like a straw doll. Milsha made the same mistake and joined her sister not a moment later. High winced at the awful sound that followed. He wasn't even sure if they still lived. No, wait, they were groaning. Thank the gods for small mercies, because he had a distinct feeling he wouldn't be receiving any. Where is he, Junior? I don't know. He dropped the bottle and raised both hands to show himself harmless. I swear, honest to gods, he was here an hour ago, but he left. Do you really want to start a war with the underworld over this? You misunderstand. This isn't war. His hand rose. This is pest control. Junior raised his hand higher, shielding his face. I didn't know it was you, and now you do. The rejoinder was swift. Are you sorry? Yes, I swear, I didn't know. If he had, he never would have linked Junior those men. The knife came up and under his chin. Tough. She, Junior warbled and broke. She won't let you get away with this? Yes. Something flashed through those cold, dead eyes. She will. She won't. You truly believe that, don't you? His killer regarded him for a long moment. All right, I've got time. He kicked out a seat for him. Sit down. Junior did no such thing. To sit was to die. I don't think. No. Naruto snarled. You don't? Now sit down. Junior sat. You see, there was once a man. He found a full glass and knocked the drink back. He was a soldier of fortune, a mercenary who traveled the world. He wanted for nothing, needed nothing, and yet, despite that, he decided to share his abundance with someone who was less fortunate. An orphan, 14 years old, an urchin with nothing to her name but a pair of swords and the clothes on her back, a kid who had, by all rights, been used and abused from an early age, troubled, prone to violence. Stop me if you heard this one before. Junior gulped. No, go on. I will, thank you. Naruto hummed his thanks. So this good man opened his home to this girl, and when she stole from him, this good man loved her anyway. He took up a fork and began to carve away at his meal. When she failed in school, this good man showed understanding and patience. A piece of steak came and went, swallowed in a single bite. When the girl lied and cheated and clawed and fought, this good man showed compassion until the girl, who had never felt anything like being wanted or loved, finally did. It was a miracle. No two ways about it. He set his fork down, and the silence stretched between them. 1 week later, the girl killed the good man. Naruto slammed his glass down, etching a crack in the fine material. Junior's gaze followed it, mesmerized. You see, the girl was afraid. She was scared that one day the good man would wake up and realize she wasn't worth it, like all the others in her life. That little fracture etched itself deeper now, becoming a deep fissure. She couldn't bear the thought that this good man, would throw her away like that. So, he took up the fork and made a slashing motion across his throat. She killed him. Only then did Junior glimpse the scar there. The glass split, sending both halves tumbling to the table. But then something incredible happened. Naruto took a hold of each and laid them atop one another. The good man didn't die. He got right back up, pulled the blade from his neck, and smiled at the girl. A faint glow steamed from his hands, and Junior vaguely felt a flash of heat. The man did not chastise the girl for her crimes. He simply held her close, as a father would, as no one ever had before. He gave the glass back, now free of imperfection completely. Care to know what he said? You're going to tell me, aren't you? He made her promise. More a vow, really. Naruto steeped his fingers and laid his chin atop them. He swore to her that he would never lose faith in her, never hurt her, never betray her trust. His head tilted just so, shadows falling over the right side of his face. He taught her a few tricks after that, small things that a child like her could use. Why did he have the worst feeling about this? What happened to this girl? When she was old enough, the good man let her go. Naruto's smile had too many teeth. He kissed her forehead and gave her his blessing, sent her out into the world to make her a fortune, and she did. He leaned back at last, his tale complete. Would you like to know her name? Hi? Some small part of him already knew. No, it couldn't be. The chances of that, it just wasn't possible. Naruto leaned in, warm lips brushed his ear. Cinder. That name broke him. Cinderfall was a stone-cold bitch. He'd never seen her express so much as an iota of emotion for anyone. That was just it. She cared for no one, nothing. The idea of that someone had raised her, even if they weren't her blood, it threatened to unman him because it meant she would never go against such a person. You didn't mess with family. She wants to destroy Vale. A brow quirked. Is that what you think? He did. She said as much, hadn't she? Unless she was lying. So you see, Junior, a scarred forehead pressed against his. That's why she won't do anything. I raised that girl. A spark of gold burned through those cold blue eyes. Took her in when she was at her lowest point and made her what she is today. Told her she could be whatever she wanted to be, so long as it made her happy. He shrugged carelessly. Maybe I should have disciplined her better. Suppose I'll have to after this. Why? I whimpered. Why tell me all this? Because I wanted to make things perfectly clear between us. The rejoinder was swift. You see, I know you're wearing a wire, just as I know Roman is listening in on our little conversation. A hand came down on his right shoulder, all but fastening him in place. Don't worry, Hai. You're going to live. He's going to hear every little bit of this. I am. You are. His head bobbed. You've done me a great kindness, you see. I'm a merciful man. A knife slammed into the table, burying itself to the hilt. So I'm going to make an example out of you. What? Your left eye or your right? Cold dread coiled in the pit of his stomach as those words damned him. I'll make it quick, painless even. A little smile creased those whiskered cheeks as his gaze swept down to the knife. I hear eye patches are all the rage these days. Really, I'm doing you a favor. You'll have ladies beating down your door. It was the best offer he'd gotten. This or death. Looking at it like that, the loss of an eye was a small price to pay. Left, sir. He swallowed once and closed his eyes. The knife blurred at his face. Clench your teeth. Power was complicated. There are many different kinds, of course. Physical, mental, emotional, blunt, subtle. Power came in many forms, but at the end of the day, it all boiled down to respect, for it was respect that built the foundations of fear, and with it, awareness of said power, and like it or not, Naruto knew a thing or two about power. When you lived this long, it came to you naturally. Power was the reason she'd come to visit. The door squeaked open like a fearful field mouse, the bell above it chiming mournfully. Naruto looked up from his cleaning. Well, look who it is. Cinderfall slipped inside, puffing out her chest to make herself seem larger than she was. Adorable. He remembered a different time not so long ago when she'd hunched her shoulders inwards, trying to be small, trying to hide, not just from him, but everyone, everything, when she'd been a tiny gawky thing, gawping at everything in sight. To him, she was still very much that girl. You look well. She reached across her body and gripped her right wrist. How have you been? Well, he said with some heat. More than you clearly seem to be at the moment. What the hell were you thinking? She laughed and it sounded forced. I didn't intend to. Cut the crap. Cinder chuckled again then. This time her laugh was not that fake. A cultured thing. It was soft and low, raw and dangerous, the sound one predator might make towards another. She knew better than to intimidate him, if only because she knew it wouldn't work. He'd hoped that she wouldn't become something like this. I haven't forgotten your lessons, she said, smiling. Not a single thing. He checked a smile of his own. Then why are you here? Cinderfall was no fool. She knew she'd been caught. Naruto raised his arms. Well, he quirked a brow. Aren't you going to give your old man a hug? Her face flamed with colors. Daddy, no. Daddy, yes. He wiggled his arms. I haven't seen you in years. You don't write. You never call. His brow darkened. You sent your goons to wreck my shop. That wasn't me. Her eyes flashed with panic from her younger days. I only remembered the name by chance because you mentioned it once. How was I to know you actually went through with that harebrained scheme of yours? I silenced straight between master and apprentice. In the end, Naruto shrugged. He supposed that was fair. It wasn't as if he'd advertised his new business to old acquaintances. Only a handful knew what he was doing these days, just the way he liked it. Unfortunately for her, it didn't absolve her of guilt. And how was I to know the girl I raised become a common criminal with plans to destroy an entire kingdom? I'm not. She looked aside. I don't wish for the destruction of Belle. It's complicated. Naruto didn't lower his arms. Wanna hug it out? Must we? Yes. He grinned. We must. Sundar rolled her eyes and walked into his waiting arm embrace with a huff. Her chin came down over his shoulder as his arms clasped her by the back. She fought for a moment, then succumbed with a put-upon sigh, the sort a surly teenager might make towards an overly affectionate parent. In many ways, she was still a little girl to him. She always would be, even if he had to discipline her every now and again. So, he grinned down at her. How have you been? Still going through that conquer-the-world phase? She growled and wrinkled his arms to no avail. His grip was strong. This isn't a phase, Daddy. He pulled her a little closer to him. Sure it isn't. So, plan, tell me. Now, his foster daughter stiffened once. And if I don't want to, he patted her back. Then you get a spanking. She went terribly still. You wouldn't dare. No. Care to test your old man? She told him everything, and he laughed. Previews? Daddy, no. Daddy, yes. Now sit down before I tan your hide. Why do Shnees always think they can buy me out? Really, your mother was the only exception. Weiss died inside. Roman whimpered. He won't get me. I won't let him. Crazy bastard. I'll show him. Emerald blinked. Does that make you my grandfather? All right, I've been away way too long. I've been forgotten. So here's what we're gonna do. If you don't move, your head is going up his arse. There was a silence. You sure you want to ride this train? I'm not afraid of you. Then you will die braver than most. End of chapter 3.